The fluorescent lights of Patterson's grocery flickered as manager Derek Walsh typed the employee ID into the system. He smirked, ready to dig up dirt on the quiet woman everyone mocked. But when he hit enter, the screen didn't load her file, it flashed crimson red. 3 words appeared in bold: Federal Restriction Notice. Within seconds, his computer locked. His phone rang. The voice on the other end made his blood run cold. Step away from that terminal. Now. Federal agents are en route. The grocery clerk everyone had underestimated for 3 years wasn't who anyone thought she was. And Derek Walsh had just triggered something that would change everything. 3 days earlier, the morning shift at Patterson's grocery in Cedar Falls, Iowa, had started like any other tedious day. The automatic doors whooshed open at 6 a.m. sharp, and Emma Pierce clocked in with the same unremarkable efficiency she'd displayed for the past 3 years. She wore her green vest, her name tag slightly crooked, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. To everyone at Patterson's, Emma was invisible, background noise in the symphony of suburban shopping. "Hey, Emma," called Jake from the produce section, his tone dripping with condescension. "Think you can handle stocking the canned goods today without needing a supervisor to hold your hand?" His cronies laughed, a sound that had become as routine as the morning announcements over the store's PA system. Emma simply nodded, pushing her cart toward aisle 7. She'd learned long ago that silence was her best defense. Words created ripples, and ripples created attention. Attention was something she couldn't afford. "She's like a robot," whispered Melissa, the young cashier who'd been there only 6 months but had already absorbed the culture of casual cruelty that seemed to permeate the store. "Does she even have a personality? I've never heard her talk about anything personal. No boyfriend, no family, no life. It's weird. Probably lives with like 20 cats," Jake replied, loud enough for Emma to hear. More laughter. Derek Walsh watched this exchange from his office window overlooking the store floor. He was 35, recently promoted to manager, and hungry to prove himself to corporate. His predecessor had been too soft, too willing to let things slide. Derek was different. He ran a tight ship, and that meant knowing everything about everyone under his command. Emma Pierce bothered him. Not because she was a problem employee, quite the opposite. Her work was impeccable. She was never late, never called in sick, never requested time off. She completed every task efficiently and without complaint. But she was a mystery, and Derek Walsh hated mysteries. He tried the friendly approach at first. "So, Emma, where'd you work before Patterson's?" he'd asked during her 6-month review, which he'd inherited from the previous manager. "Different places," she'd answered, her eyes not quite meeting his. "What brought you to Cedar Falls?" "Just needed a change." That same flat tone, polite but impenetrable. He'd checked her employment file then, found it oddly sparse. A social security number, a Cedar Falls address, references from previous employers that all checked out when HR had called them 3 years ago. But something felt off. The references were too perfect, too scripted. The work history too clean. Now, watching her stock cans of soup with mechanical precision while his employees mocked her, Derek made a decision. He would dig deeper. With the new database system corporate had just implemented, he had access to expanded background check features. He'd run a complete check on Emma Pierce and find out what she was hiding. Because people like her, people who tried so hard to be invisible, they were always hiding something. That evening, Emma walked home to her small apartment on Maple Street, the same route she took every day. She stopped at the same crosswalk, bought coffee from the same vending machine at the laundromat on the corner, and climbed the stairs to her second-floor unit with the same measured pace. Inside, her apartment was sparse but clean. A single bed, neatly made. A small table with one chair. A bookshelf with well-worn paperbacks. No photographs. No personal mementos. Nothing that told a story about who Emma Pierce really was. She made dinner, pasta with marinara sauce from a jar, and ate alone, like she did every night. But unlike every other night, her hand trembled slightly as she lifted the fork to her mouth. Something had shifted today. She'd felt it in the way Derek had watched her, that calculating look in his eyes. She'd seen that look before, years ago, in another life. It was the look of someone who decided she was a problem to be solved. Emma set down her fork, her appetite gone. She walked to her bedroom closet and reached up to the top shelf, pulling down a shoebox. Inside was a prepaid cell phone, still in its packaging, and a slip of paper with a single phone number written in her own handwriting. She stared at the number. Using it would mean everything changed. Again. She'd built a life here, small, quiet, but it was hers. 3 years of carefully constructed normalcy. But she'd also learned that survival meant knowing when to run. She put the box back and tried to sleep, though she knew it would be fitful. The next morning, Derek arrived at the store an hour early. He made himself coffee in the break room and settled into his office, logging into the new employee management system. The interface was sleek, corporate-approved, with access to federal databases that were supposed to help employers make informed hiring decisions. He pulled up Emma's file and selected Enhance Background Check. The system prompted him for authorization, which his manager-level credentials provided. He clicked Confirm. The screen loaded for a moment, a spinning circle indicating the system was searching. Derek sipped his coffee, expecting to see perhaps a hidden criminal record, maybe some debt problems, something to explain her secretive nature. Instead, the screen went black. Then it flashed red. Bold white letters appeared, Federal Restriction Notice, Unauthorized Access Attempt logged. Derek's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. Before he could process what he was seeing, the computer screen locked completely. His mouse wouldn't move. His keyboard was unresponsive. His desk phone rang, the sound harsh in the quiet office. With a shaking hand, Derek picked up the receiver. Patterson's Grocery, this is Derek Walsh. Mr. Walsh, this is Agent Sarah Chen with the United States Marshal Service. You attempted to access a restricted federal file approximately 45 seconds ago. I need you to step away from your computer terminal immediately and remain in your office. Federal agents are approximately 12 minutes from your location. The phone slipped from Derek's hand, clattering against his desk. This wasn't possible. This was a grocery store in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Emma Pierce was a stock clerk who everyone made fun of for being boring. This couldn't be happening. But it was happening. Downstairs, Emma was beginning her shift, unaware that the carefully constructed walls around her old life were crumbling. She scanned her employee badge and headed for the break room to store her lunch, exchanging the briefest of nods with Melissa at the front register. Did you hear? Melissa said to Jake, who'd just arrived. Derek's been in his office with the door locked since before opening. Won't answer when anyone knocks. Probably doing some corporate video conference thing, Jake replied, uninterested. Hey, Emma, you're on Register 4 today. Melissa called in her backup, so we need you up front. Emma's stomach tightened. She preferred stalking, preferred the aisles where she could work alone. The registers meant interaction, meant being visible. But she simply nodded and made her way to Register 4, logging into the system. 12 minutes after the phone call, 2 black SUVs pulled into the Patterson's grocery parking lot. 4 individuals in dark suits emerged, moving with the kind of purposeful stride that made shoppers instinctively step aside. They entered the store, and the lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an ID badge that read, U.S. Marshal Service, approached the customer service desk. We need to speak with your manager, Derek Walsh, immediately. And we need you to discreetly identify an employee for us. Emma Pierce. The young man at the customer service desk stammered, Mr. Walsh is in his office upstairs. And Emma, he turned, scanning the registers, and pointed. She's right there. Register 4. Agent Chen looked across the store. There, scanning groceries for an elderly customer with patient efficiency, was the woman they'd been maintaining eyes on for 3 years. The woman who'd been placed in witness protection after testifying against one of the most dangerous organized crime families in the Northeast. The woman whose testimony had put away 15 people, including the family's patriarch, for a combined 300 years in federal prison. The woman who was currently being threatened because a grocery store manager had triggered every alarm in the federal system by attempting to access her sealed file. Dispatch, Agent Chen spoke into her radio, "We have eyes on the asset. Status appears secure, but we need immediate assessment of threat level. Walsh's access attempt may have compromised the placement." Emma finished scanning the elderly woman's items, her movement steady, but something made her look up. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was the years of training to always be aware of her surroundings. She saw the suits, saw them talking to the customer service desk, saw the way they were trying not to look directly at her while clearly discussing her. Her heart rate spiked, but her face remained calm. She smiled at the elderly customer. "Have a nice day, Mrs. Chen." It was only after the woman had left that Emma realized she'd said Chin instead of reading the actual name. Agent Chin. She'd heard them announce themselves before, years ago, in another life. Her subconscious had recognized the surname. She pressed the button for a supervisor, following protocol. "I need a bathroom break," she said to Jake when he arrived. "You just started your shift," he protested. "Female emergency," she said flatly, which made him immediately uncomfortable enough to wave her away. Emma walked calmly toward the bathrooms, but once out of direct line of sight, she diverted to the employee exit. Her purse was still in her locker, but that didn't matter. In her pocket was always a small amount of cash and the key to her apartment. That was all she'd need to get to the shoebox in her closet. But as she pushed open the employee exit door, she found herself facing 2 more agents. "Miss Pierce," one of them said gently, "we need you to come with us. There's been a security breach." Emma's hands clenched into fists, her breathing accelerating. "Is Marcus out?" The name came out as barely a whisper. Marcus Donovan, the youngest son of the family she'd helped put away. The one who'd whispered, "You're dead," as he'd been led out of the courtroom. "No," the agent assured her quickly. "Marcus Donovan is still in maximum security. But someone attempted to access your protected file. We don't know if it was coincidental or if someone's been looking for you. Until we clear this, you're not safe here." Upstairs, Derek sat in his office, flanked by Agent Chin and another marshal. His face was pale, his hands still shaking. "I didn't know," he kept repeating. "I was just doing a standard background check. She was so secretive, and I just wanted to know." "What you wanted," Agent Chin interrupted sharply, "was to invade the privacy of an employee who was doing her job perfectly well. And in doing so, you potentially compromised a federal witness whose life is in danger from one of the most vindictive crime families in America." "Crime family?" "Emma." Derek looked like he might be sick. "She stocks groceries. She's nobody." "She's somebody who did an incredibly brave thing," Agent Chin corrected. 3.5 years ago, Emma Pierce, which is not her real name, came forward with evidence of money laundering, racketeering, and 4 murders. She worked as an accountant for the Donovan family. She could have looked the other way, taken her salary, and lived a comfortable life. Instead, she risked everything to do the right thing. Agent Chin stood, looking down at Derek with barely concealed disgust. "Your curiosity, your need to dig into someone's private life for no legitimate business reason, may have just destroyed the safe life she built. We monitor for any attempts to access her file because the Donovans have resources, including corrupt officials who might try to locate her. Your access attempt lit up our system like a Christmas tree. And if we noticed it, there's a chance someone else monitoring the same databases noticed it too. Derek's face went from pale to green. I didn't mean. No one ever means to, Agent Chin said. But intentions don't stop consequences. In a secure room at the Cedar Falls Federal Building, Emma sat across from Agent Chin and two other marshals. They'd brought her there directly from the store, not even allowing her to return to her apartment. We're still assessing the threat level, Agent Chin explained. Your manager, Derek Walsh, accessed the system out of what appears to be personal nosiness, not as part of any organized effort to locate you. However, the access triggered alerts that could have been noticed by individuals monitoring for exactly this kind of flag. So someone might know I'm here, Emma said quietly. It's possible. We're checking all network activity associated with the breach. But out of abundance of caution, we need to relocate you. Emma closed her eyes. Relocation. Again. 3 years ago, it had been Samantha Brooks, accountant in Philadelphia, becoming Emma Pierce, grocery clerk in Cedar Falls. Now Emma Pierce would die, and she'd become someone else, somewhere else. I was happy here, she said, surprising herself. I know that sounds stupid. I worked at a grocery store where people made fun of me. I lived alone in a tiny apartment. But it was mine. It was safe. And I was actually starting to think about maybe taking a class at the community college, maybe making a friend. I was close to having a real life. Agent Chen's expression softened. I know. And I'm sorry. What you did, testifying against the Donovans, it saved lives. 3 of their planned hits never happened because they went to prison. A trafficking ring was shut down. You're a hero, even though you can't tell anyone. I don't want to be a hero, Emma said, tears finally sliding down her cheeks. I just want to be normal. I want to introduce myself by my real name. I want to talk about where I grew up. I want to call my sister and wish her happy birthday. Her voice broke. I want to exist. The room was quiet for a moment. The Donovan patriarch, Vincent, is 73 and in poor health, another agent spoke up. The sentence he received is effectively life. Marcus, the one who threatened you, won't be eligible for parole for another 12 years. The family's operations have been dismantled. Each year that passes, the threat to you diminishes. But it never goes away, Emma finished. Not completely. No, Agent Chin admitted. Not completely. Emma wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders, that same composure she'd shown at the trial settling over her like armor. Okay. Where am I going? Meanwhile, back at Patterson's grocery, word had spread that something big had happened. Federal agents had taken Derek away for questioning. Emma Pierce had left with other agents and hadn't come back. Rumors were flying. I heard she was actually an undercover agent investigating fraud, one employee whispered. No way, I heard she was in witness protection, another countered. Jake stood at the customer service desk, feeling something he hadn't experienced in a long time, shame. He thought about all the times he'd mocked Emma, made fun of her quietness, her lack of social life. He'd assumed she was just weird, never considering that maybe she'd had reasons for keeping to herself. Melissa approached him quietly. Do you think she's okay? I don't know, Jake admitted. But I feel like garbage for how we treated her. She never did anything to us, Melissa said, her own voice thick with guilt. She just came to work, did her job, and went home. And we acted like she was some kind of freak for not wanting to hang out or share her whole life story. The next morning, Agent Chin visited Derek Walsh at his home. He answered the door looking like he hadn't slept, which he probably hadn't. Is she okay? Were his first words. Miss Pierce is secure, Agent Chin replied. I'm here to explain what happens next. You will be required to attend a briefing about federal witness protection protocols and the serious consequences of unauthorized access to protected information. You will sign documents acknowledging the severity of what occurred. And you will never speak about this to anyone, not your employees, not your family, not your friends. I understand, Derek said. But I need you to know something. I need you to tell her, if you can, that I'm sorry. I was on a power trip. I wanted to feel important by knowing something no one else knew. I didn't think about her as a person with a right to privacy. I just saw her as a puzzle to solve. Agent Chin studied him for a moment. The fact that you recognize that is something. But your apology doesn't give her back the life you helped take away. Derek nodded, tears in his eyes. I know. 2 weeks later, in a small town in Oregon whose name Emma wasn't allowed to share with anyone, she started a new job at a library. Her name was now Claire Westfield. She had a new apartment, new clothes, a new fabricated history. On her first day, a coworker named Jennifer invited her to lunch. Thanks, but I usually eat alone, Emma, Claire started to say automatically. Then she stopped. She thought about the shoebox she'd left behind, the prepaid phone she'd never used. She thought about 3 years of careful isolation that had ended anyway. She thought about what Agent Chin had said about the threat diminishing with time. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe being invisible wasn't the same as being safe. Maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself one friend. Actually, Claire said, managing a small smile, lunch would be nice. 3 months into her new life, Claire received a phone call from Agent Chin. We've completed our investigation into the breach, the agent said. Derek Walsh's access was purely coincidental, wrong motives, but not connected to the Donovans. More importantly, we've had a development. Vincent Donovan died in prison 2 weeks ago. Marcus Donovan has entered into a cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors regarding unrelated crimes. As part of that agreement, he's provided information about outstanding threats, including any active efforts to locate you. Claire's heart pounded. And there were none. The family fractured after the convictions. Different factions blamed each other for the downfall. The younger generation, including Marcus, moved away from the family business. They wanted deals, reduced sentences, new lives. You've been safe, Claire. Probably for longer than we realized. Claire sat down heavily. So I didn't need to relocate. The threat wasn't zero, Agent Chin said carefully. Walsh's access could have been noticed by the wrong people, even if it ultimately wasn't. We made the call we thought was safest. But I wanted you to know that you're not looking over your shoulder anymore. In a year, maybe 2, if everything remains stable, we can discuss ending your protection. Ending it? Claire repeated. I could use my real name again. Potentially. It's not a guarantee, but it's possible. After the call ended, Claire sat in her small Oregon apartment, larger than the one in Cedar Falls, with a view of mountains instead of a parking lot, and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from the strange, fragile feeling of hope. That evening at the library where she worked, she found Jennifer in the break room. Hey, Claire said, I know I've been kind of closed off. I want to change that. Would you want to get coffee this weekend? Like, actually spend time together outside of work? Jennifer's face lit up. I'd love that. I was starting to think you hated me. I don't hate you, Claire said. I've been dealing with some complicated stuff. But I'm trying to do better. We've all got complicated stuff, Jennifer said kindly. That's what friends are for, right? To help each other through it. Friends. The word settled over Claire like a warm blanket. Back in Cedar Falls, Patterson's grocery had changed. Derek Walsh had been quietly transferred to a different store in a different state, corporate's way of handling a public relations nightmare that couldn't be made public. The new manager was a woman named Patricia who had a strict policy against workplace gossip and mockery. Jake had quit, unable to shake the guilt of how he'd treated someone who'd been through things he couldn't imagine. He wrote a letter to Emma Pierce at her last known address, not knowing it would never reach her, apologizing for his cruelty. Melissa still worked there, but she'd become something of an advocate, shutting down gossip about coworkers and reminding people that everyone had their own story. The story of what really happened was never publicly revealed, but the lesson lingered. The quiet person stocking shelves or scanning groceries might be carrying burdens you can't see. Kindness costs nothing, but its absence can cost everything. 1 year later, Claire received final confirmation. The witness protection requirements were being lifted. She could reclaim her original identity if she chose. The Donovan family was effectively defunct, their power scattered, their threats empty. Claire, whose real name was Sarah Mitchell, stood in front of the mirror in her Oregon apartment, trying out her old name. "I'm Sarah," she said to her reflection. It sounded strange after 4.5 years. But then she thought about the life she'd built as Claire Westfield. The friends she'd made, the book club she'd joined, the community college course on creative writing she'd enrolled in. The quiet confidence she'd developed in this new identity. She picked up her phone and called Agent Chin. "I've thought about it," Sarah said. "I want to keep the name Claire." Sarah Mitchell testified against the Donovans and then disappeared. "Claire Westfield is someone who gets to live. I'd like to make it legal, legally change my name to Claire Mitchell. Keep a piece of my old self, but move forward as the person I've become." "That's absolutely possible," Agent Chin said, and Sarah could hear the smile in her voice. "I think that's really healthy, actually." "There's something else," Sarah continued. "I want to reach out to my sister. We haven't spoken in over 4 years. I don't want to lose any more time. You can do that now. The protection is lifted. You're free. Free." The word echoed in Sarah's mind long after the call ended. She drafted an email to her sister, then deleted it. Then drafted another. Finally, she settled on something simple: "It's me. I'm safe. I'd like to talk if you're willing. I've missed you." She hit send before she could overthink it. 30 minutes later, her phone rang with a video call from a number she still had memorized. Her sister's face filled the screen, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Sarah. Oh my God, Sarah. Where have you been? Are you okay?" And for the first time in over 4 years, Sarah Mitchell, Claire Mitchell, told someone who really knew her the truth about where she'd been and what she'd survived. The conversation lasted 3 hours. There was crying and laughter and anger and relief all mixed together. Her sister had been told only that Sarah was safe but unreachable, part of a federal program. The not knowing had been torture. "I thought I'd never see you again," her sister sobbed. "Even at my wedding, I looked at the door hoping you'd somehow be there. You got married." Sarah's heart broke a little. "I'm so sorry I missed it. You did what you had to do. You probably saved lives, Sarah. But God, I missed you. I missed you too. So much." In the following months, Claire carefully rebuilt bridges to her old life while maintaining the new one she'd created. She flew back east to meet her sister's husband, to visit her elderly parents who'd been told she was in a dangerous undercover assignment. The reunion was tearful and joyful and complicated. But she returned to Oregon, to her library job and her book club and her friend Jennifer. Because Claire Mitchell was who she'd become, forged in isolation and fear but emerging stronger. She'd learned something crucial in those years of hiding: you don't need a crowd to have a life. You need authenticity. You need people who see you and value you. You need to see and value yourself. The grocery clerk everyone had mocked hadn't been weak or pathetic or boring. She'd been a woman who'd risked everything for justice, who'd survived being torn away from everyone she loved, who'd built a life from nothing not once but twice. She'd been extraordinary the entire time. It just took a federal alert for anyone to notice. As Claire sat in her favorite coffee shop in Oregon one autumn afternoon, reading and occasionally chatting with regulars who knew her name and asked about her day, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: peace. Derek Walsh's intrusive curiosity had inadvertently given her a gift. It had forced another relocation, yes, but it had also shown her that hiding wasn't the same as healing. In Cedar Falls, she'd been invisible by design, protected by anonymity but imprisoned by it too. Here, as Claire Mitchell, she was visible, known, connected, and finally, truly safe. If you've stuck with this story all the way through, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to start over, in whatever form that took? Have you ever judged someone without knowing their full story? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. I read every single one and your stories matter. And if this narrative moved you or made you think differently about the quiet people in your own life, hit that like button and subscribe because we share true, transformative stories like this every week. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones with the most extraordinary courage. Remember that the next time you encounter someone who keeps to themselves, there's always more to the story than what meets the eye.